Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific Northwest, from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The sweet, sweet Mariners. That's how I feel about them
No
today.
sweet Mariners talk today. We are one day away from what should be a national holiday in the NFL draft at this time today or this time tomorrow. We'll be right in the throes of the first round, baby. And there's going to be some moving and shaking. And in this iteration of the mock draft, we do something that we've never done before and make a trade because I think there is a trade that is to be had that will change the entire complexity of this draft. But before we get into this mock draft, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy, if he were ever to become president of the United States of America, he would make draft Thursday and Friday national holidays paid, federal, private, every holiday. Everyone gets the day off, especially me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also, find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach
That's
Red.
great.
Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy that if he were made president, he would just say, I just hope everyone has a great time. If you're looking for someone like that, you're looking for a guy like Kane.
I think you're underselling me a little bit there, but yes, I'm Kane. You can find me
He
over
would
on
he
Twitter at
would
Kane.
he would have an early release day. Like when you're in school, it's like on Fridays you get out an extra hour early. So you get out an hour earlier on draft day.
Oh, there you go. All right. Yeah, I'm Kane. You can find me over on Twitter at Kane2406, on YouTube at Kane06, TikTok Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. False, false, false. Do it, freaking do it.
The draft this year, I think there's going to be so many different moving parts, and it is going to be crazy. I think that there are going to be 6 to 7 trades this year, possibly up to 8. There's going to be guys moving up to sweet spots for wide receivers, quarterbacks, potentially some of the offensive linemen if they start to dip. And then you're going to get some good value picks with some guys that are a little bit less premium positions, right? There's going to be a lot of value for some of these teams who will take the draft capital because they might not be 1 to 2 guys away, and compiling a few extra picks I think is going to be key. So why don't we just hop right into it? Bum, 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 bum. With the first overall pick, the Chicago Bears select.
Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC.
We've hammered this one home since the start. Actually, the Trojans. You forgot that part. Got him. Uh,
You know what? We're just
Caleb Williams,
roll with
there
it.
you get into draft week and there's so much talk where there's some execs like, if I had the number one pick, there's no way I would take Caleb Williams. I'd take Jaden Daniels. There's people that have all these guys going which way and everywhere, which a lot of it's smoke, right? And you got to read through the smoke. But it's been Caleb Williams since day one for the Bears.
Yep.
That's not going to change now.
I mean, they basically came out and said that they're going to do it. They shipped out Justin Fields. There's a big glaring hole. They're not writing on what's his name, the backup that took over for like
Tanner
three
Pageant.
games. Yeah, they're not gonna roll with Badgett out there. Caleb Williams has been mocked at number one the entire year by every single person that does mocks. It's just a nails on hit.
All right. With the second overall pick, the Washington Commanders select
Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU.
a lot of guys that I'm seeing this week are comping him as Lamar Jackson 2.0, but more polished as a passer coming out of college. And that's kind of always been the knock for me on Lamar is his passing game isn't where it's supposed to be. It'll be interesting to see with Jaden Daniels, originally coming from Arizona State. I saw a pretty sweet clip where it was Jaden Daniels throwing a touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk, and in coverage was Demondre Lenore, and the starting quarterback for Oregon in that game was Justin Herbert, pre-COVID
Mhm.
years. So Jaden Daniels has had his time in college, really shined at LSU, and I want to see him in the big time games. He's going to have a good complement of weapons out there. When you look at Jahan Dotson and you look at Scary Terry McLaurin, they've got what I think is a pretty solid running back room as well. When you look at Brian Johnson, I think that they're in a good spot to do some good things.
Right. And this could be almost an instant turnaround from their offensive production last year. Their offense was nowhere where it needed to be. And yes, they had Sam Howell, but he was just kind of thrown into the situation.
Well,
The
and you
O
had
line
Eric
was
Bieniemy trying to do what he was doing with Patrick Mahomes
right.
with a first year starter. So now you bring in Cliff Kingsbury, who I think is probably better suited for an offensive coordinator role compared to a head coaching role. That's kind of what he is.
Yeah.
It's still going to be, that gun spread type of offense, but I expect them to incorporate the running game a little bit more, especially with Dan Quinn at the HC job,
Hmm.
because where they've had success is when they've had an above average run game.
Right. Right.
With the third overall pick, the New England Patriots select.
Drake May, quarterback out of North Carolina.
I've heard some rumors this week that the Patriots will listen to deals, and I think that
Yes.
that is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. When you can go get a quarterback right here and don't have to worry about what's left, you get your pick of you've got six guys who I think can feasibly go in the first round, and if you can have your pick of the litter, I think you do that. And I think that when you look at this, he's toolsy enough to give you what you want. And when you look at after the Tom Brady era, they tried to look for guys that had traits. At first, it was Cam Newton. They liked the ability to run. You get that a little bit with Drake May. And my best comp for him right now is a less athletic Josh Allen. So putting him in the same division, being able to play that guy twice a year, it's going to be a real barometer for him. And his numbers were down. We talked about it before. His playmakers at North Carolina weren't always premier, and the guys that were left to the league last year, especially Josh Downs, who was wide receiver 2 or 3, however you look at it for the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm. Right. Right.
With the fourth overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals trade this selection to the Minnesota Vikings for picks 11 and 23. The Minnesota Vikings, you're on the clock. And they select.
Jace, JJ McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan.
I could see a world where JJ McCarthy actually does go to pick 3 because he kind of gives you that Tom Brady vibe, like we talked about in the fun
The
mock.
Michigan vibes.
Michigan gives you that spiritually, I'm taking care of my body, TB12 vibes there too. I could see that happening, but do you think that when you look at the Vikings, they're most intrigued by him? If they are going to have JJ McCarthy sit a little bit, when you look at skill set, it's similar to Sam Darnold, who they have penciled in right now as the starter before the draft starts. But this is a team where you have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison. You are not going to waste Justin Jefferson's talent by having Sam Darnold start significant time. You have to make the move to go get a quarterback. You lost
Yes.
out on Kirk Cousins. You have to go make this move. And you can pick whichever quarterback you want, but I do think that they make this move. And the guy with the highest buzz around him would be JJ McCarthy for me.
That has been the rumor mill that I've been hearing. As I was talking to somebody the other day, I was talking about JJ McCarthy, and he said that they all week he would run plays, but with the Harbaugh, right, you're gonna run the ball. So during those training sessions and practice and all that, he was making all the plays, making all the throws, making all the good decisions. I have yet to see it. but he is a top rated prospect. He has all the athletic tools. You can see that on him. You can see from his pro days, from the combine and stuff. He is athletic. And I think that coach is right. You need to get a quarterback in this room because Justin Jefferson is too good to waste. And he will ask for a trade if not happy.
And you look at it too, you've got an offensive minded head coach and Kevin O'Connell, a guy that's worked with the Rams, was part of their Super Bowl run, worked with Stafford. You saw good things out of Kirk Cousins. And even with the multitude of quarterbacks that were running through that team last year, you saw some success with Josh Dobbs. You started Jalen Hall a little bit as well. You threw
Nick
in everybody. You
Mullins.
threw the kitchen sink. And I think that he's got enough, especially if he's got a younger quarterback, sit him a little bit at the top here. Let Sam Darnold get a start the first couple of weeks. When you feel comfortable, you hand the reins over and you don't look back.
Right.
With the 5th overall pick, the Los Angeles Chargers select
Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State.
Oh, patience is a virtue for the Chargers here. They get the guy that's been ranked by most draft pundits as wide receiver one. I'll tell you one draft pundit that does not have him as wide receiver one, and that's Roma Dunze, because he says I'm number one in this class. But the I've said it before, I'll say it again. NFL bloodlines, you see the tape that you put on for him, it's electric. Jim Harbaugh's went out and said during this lead up that Marvin Harrison Jr. was one of the toughest guys to scheme against in that rivalry. So having a Michigan man taking an Ohio State player with his first pick with his new franchise, love to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the 6th overall pick, the New York Football Giants select
Roma Dunze, wide receiver out of Washington.
I told you once, I'll tell you again. Roma Dunze was never getting past wide receiver two for me. I think that he brings a different skill set to this wide receiver room. You've got a lot of shifty yak guys. Roma Dunze can do it all. He wins your 50-50 balls. He can get over the top. He is phenomenal at contested catches. He has great contact balance. His ability to gain yards in the screen game is second to none. He's a complete player. And I don't think that Danny Nichols is long for this. I think that you could see Drew Lock competing, and I could see them potentially sneaking in, moving up to the tail end of the first round, or selecting a quarterback with, if there are some of the top 6 still available on day 2, very early, to bring even more competition into that room, because I don't think Daniel Jones is the answer, but I think that Roma Dunze will help raise the floor for whatever quarterback is taking snaps under center for the Giants.
I like
All
it.
right. With pick number 7, the Tennessee Titans select
Dallas Turner, edge out of Alabama.
I've been hearing a lot of smoke with Dallas Turner that he's going to be the first defensive player selected. That's why he gets a little bit of bump up in this draft. We've consistently had him, as a top. I believe the lowest he got for us was about pick 19 ever. And I think that the traits are there. The production at Alabama is there. And I think that with the Titans as a whole, they address some of their needs this offseason through free agency on the offensive side, going and getting Calvin Ridley to pair with DeAndre Hopkins. They also went and got little slot wide receiver as well. Name escapes me right now in the moment, but time to beef up that defense, because when you think of the Titans recent history, they're a team that's built on defense and playing sound offensively. I think that this team's a little bit more geared to be a little bit more high powered with their offense. So it's time to go and beef up that defense, and going and getting a guy that can get after the quarterback, I think, is key for them.
I agree with that.
With pick 8, the Atlanta Falcons select
Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo.
I think that Quinyon's just a massive hit here. I think we've mocked him here a few times. I think that he will be the first cornerback taken it's going to be a coin flip between him and Terrion Arnold just because big school versus small school, but the traits are there. His ability to show up at the Senior Bowl was evident. He wowed a lot of people there, and that's when his draft stock really started rising. He was seen as maybe a day two pick going in the Senior Bowl. He worked his way into first round contention with that, and then after his pro day and the combine, the guy just wowed everybody with his physical tools. I think that he goes here. It gives you a solid number two across from AJ Terrell, and you've done some things on offense. Same thing like we talked about with the Titans. You've done some things on offense. Time to go beef up that defense a little bit.
Right. And with losing Jeff Okuda opposite side, it gives them somebody who is just a lightning bolt on the field. I've seen him have nothing but quickness, and it's something, you add him to AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates, that's a scary trio I don't want to face.
Agreed. All right. Pick number 9, the Chicago Bears select.
Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU.
I thought about going defense here, but let's really round out this wide receiver room. The one thing that I like about Neighbors is I think that he gives you, especially early on, a good compliment and a guy that can take over and be that number two across from DJ Moore, because Keenan Allen's going to run your slot, and Keenan Allen's struggled with health. He's getting older. He's not going to be around there forever. It was a move that they made because it made sense. And I think that bringing another guy that has been highly successful in college to really pair with this team, you saw the improvements they made on defense, but there were some lapses in the offensive game. I thought about going tackle here, but just couldn't pass up a guy that sometimes is being seen as mocked as high as 6.
Yep.
All right. With pick number 10, the New York Football Jets select
Joe Alt, tackle out of Notre Dame.
another good patience pick here. The way that the offensive playmakers and your wide receiver, having 3 wide receivers and 4 quarterbacks go in your top 9 picks, really pans out well for the Jets in this iteration of the mock draft. They get the top tackle available on the board at pick 10, and they don't got to do a goddamn thing. I do think that Joe Alt has the ability to go a little bit higher for some of these teams, like the Titans, like the Chargers. If the board doesn't fall exactly how they want, I could see them going tackle without a problem. But this has been a big problem for the Jets for many of years in solving that offensive line. Go get me a guy that profiles as a extremely good pro ready NFL tackle.
Yes.
All right. With pick number 11, this was a part of the trade. The Arizona Cardinals select
Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU.
I thought about potentially waiting a little bit on wide receiver, but I think that they can reach here a little bit. With having 3 picks now in the first round, you can address multiple positions of need because this is a team that has multiple positions they need to upgrade. So go ahead and give me the best opportunity cost right now to go get a guy that had huge numbers at LSU, played with a quarterback that has a similar play style to Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels. So go ahead and get me a guy who I think could fit inside the system. You don't know what it's going to all the way look like because you saw a little bit of glimpses, but you never really had the full complement together with this Arizona Cardinals team where you always had someone that was banged or bruised up offensively. I want to pepper a little bit more love onto the offensive side because I think that's where they need the most help.
Yes. Yes. Especially with, losing DeAndre Hopkins the year prior. Um,
Hollywood Brown.
Hollywood Brown, their best offensive weapon right now is Zach Ertz. So you really need to get something out there to get Kyler really going. So
Zach Ertz isn't on this team anymore.
is he not? Oh,
No.
he was.
Their best offensive playmaker is Kyler Murray.
That's fair.
Signed, sealed, delivered. All right. Going to the next pick. Pick number 12, the Denver Broncos select
Latu, edge out of UCLA.
the Broncos are in a spot here where I think they can couple some things to move up. They've talked about the possibility of packaging Patrick Surtain to move up to go get a quarterback, but he's the face of your franchise right now. He's a guy you just picked up his 5th year option. He's a guy that is one of the top corners in the league. With this pick, I actually think that the Denver Broncos have a better opportunity to move back in the first round, but I didn't find a good fit right here, right now. And I didn't want to make too many trades because I don't pay for the mock draft thing. So I can't physically do the trades in real time. Right. So this is a team that I think can move back and take a look at the likes of, say, a Michael Penix Jr. or a Bo Nix at the tail end of the first round and gain more draft capital. But the offense, you have Jared Stidham right now, who I think Sean Payton feels good enough about where he can roll with him for a little bit. Go, you've lost so much talent. You traded away Von Miller, you've traded away Bradley Chubb. Who's going to get the quarterback
I
for this
mean,
team?
Jerry Judy as well.
They need a lot more than just one player. So the thought process of them moving up, I think, would be ludicrous.
Mhm.
They need to move back, but if they're staying pat at here, go get me a guy that can go get after the quarterback. I think that's one of the biggest pressing needs that they have defensively.
Yes.
With pick number 13, the Las Vegas Raiders select
Kylise Fuaga, tackle out of Oregon State.
right tackle is a hole for these guys. And when you look at the most pure right tackle that's available in this draft, it's Elise Fuaga. And this guy is another guy that had his draft stock rise. At the beginning of the mock draft season, he was seen as not a first rounder. Then once the season finished, late in the first round, this is a guy that's continued to climb. And he is in the conversation for being the first tackle taken. So to be able to snag him here at pick 13, I think is good value. And I think that when you look at the likes of them bringing in Gardner Minshew, you also have Aiden O'Connell, who did some things last year. Not all of them were great, but that's why you bring in a veteran like Gardner Minshew to be that bridge guy to get you to that next quarterback. Let's build that team up around him. Let's solidify that offensive line. Let's build through the trenches and really give Antonio Pierce a better shot to succeed at his first actual stint as the official non-intern head coach.
Yes.
All right, with pick 14, the New Orleans Saints select
Olumiyiwa Fashanu, tackle out of Penn State.
one guy that I loved in previous draft cycles was Trevor Penning, which the Saints selected to play tackle. He's got a mean streak in him, but the physical traits haven't really lended itself super well to him at the tackle position. I think that he could be a phenomenal beast of a guard. So go ahead and give me a guy that profiles more as that true starting left tackle. You can bump Penning in and make this team a little bit more tougher. You do need some more weapons for Derek Carr, but Alvin Kamara can still light up a game, and having a good offensive line in front of him, I think, is key. And like we've said, and you've seen in years past, second and third round, there's a lot of great wide receivers that are being uncovered in that area. You know, when you look at some of these guys that are getting the deals, Cooper Cup was not a first round pick. You
Mhm.
look at Stephon Diggs. No, he was a first round pick.
Puka Nakua.
Puka Nakua. You look at Tank Dell,
Mhm.
Nico Collins, these
Or
guys that really
Josh
are
Downs.
that guys that are kind of blowing up a little bit. Michael Pittman,
Right.
another guy that is sitting there. These guys, and who just signed the deal today? It escapes me. It's the best like average per year deal. God, I hate myself right now for not remembering this. But you look at some of these guys, you can find value in the second and third
Oh,
rounds.
Amon Ra St. Brown.
Yep, Amon-Ra St. Brown, third round pick. So you're finding these guys that you can get a little bit later. So go ahead and fortify the lines for me right here because I didn't want to reach too far. They're not in a position like the Cardinals are where they are starved for playmaking ability. They do have Chris Olave. You can go get me someone to pair for them with their later picks in the second and third rounds.
Yep.
Pick number 15, the Indianapolis Colts select.
Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia.
They do have some good players. Like Jelani Woods has done something at the tight end room for him. They have Mo Alley Cox, and I think it's like Kyler Granson or something like that is penciled in
Yes.
as tight end one. You look at Anthony Richardson, you look at Jonathan Taylor on this team. This is going to be a little bit more run heavy. You don't have those elite pass catchers. Michael Pittman is a good piece. Josh Downs is a good piece. Alex Pierce has underperformed based off his draft value in the years past. But go ahead and give me Brock Bowers, who can help you great in the run game and be that game changer at the tight end position. I think that if you've got a young quarterback like you do, your defense is competent enough, and I want to give him the best opportunities to succeed. So getting a do all tight end, I think would be huge for the Colts.
Yes.
With pick 16, the Seattle Seahawks, your Seattle Seahawks, will unveil their new home jerseys. That was leaked today on the internet. But with the pick, they select
Byron Murphy the second, defensive tackle out of Texas.
this stuff. Really, one of the first times. I think the Seahawks are also in a position to trade back. I think that you are going to start to see. We've seen the run on wide receivers, and it's going to continue. You're going to see some of these teams that are going to want to move up, and I think that the Seahawks, with them not having that second round pick, are going to want to recoup some value, and only one third round pick when they traded their second third round pick for Sam Howell. So I think with some of those pieces, you want to get a little bit more picks because the Seahawks need more than one player, obviously. But if they select in this position, we've talked about Troy Fantanu ad nauseum, but I think that getting Laken Tomlinson kind of decreases that need ever so slightly. Anthony Bradford last year played some good ball, played some poor ball, but this is a guy that was part of a very good LSU team, right? And I think that you want to give him that chance to grow. Byron Murphy is a game wrecker. There are some draft pundits out there over the course of this week that say they wouldn't be surprised if Byron Murphy was the first defensive player selected in this draft. To get him at 16, to pair him with the likes of Jaron Reed for 1 year, and then he's paired up with Draymond Jones,
And
Chinny
Big
Nwosu,
Cat.
and Leonard Williams for years to come. That really helps with this team. And when you look at one of the absolute key pieces that really helped in Mike McDonald's defense for the Ravens, it was Justin Matabuke, right?
Yep. Yep.
Interior pressure from the defensive line. You have a high level at your cornerback positions. You have a Pro Bowler in Julian Love, and you have Rayshawn Jenkins back there as well that has proven over the last couple of years that he can ball hawk a little bit for you. Give me more pressure on that defensive line. He's also a guy that's stout against the run. I think that he's a good package and someone that fits what Mike McDonald will look for to help be the centerpiece in his first selection as a head coach.
All right. Love it.
With pick number 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars select
Jared Versey, edge out of Florida State.
He's a guy that was looked at as a first round pick last year, didn't really elevate his draft stock like he anticipated doing, because I think this is right around where he would have been selected last year. But the traits are there, right? And he was the number one guy for the Florida State Seminoles. And that's going to be the guy that gets typically more attention from the offensive line. When you look at the type of guys that you have for the Jaguars in Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, adding him into this mix makes that front nasty, man. It's nasty. And it takes a little bit of pressure off him because he's not that known commodity. Yes, he's a first round pick, but you're gonna look at the guy that was the first overall pick and the guy that just got paid. Those are going to be your highlights. So he'll get early on in his career a few more opportunities to make some more splash plays than he did at Florida State. With pick number 18, the Cincinnati Bengals select
J.C. Latham, tackle out of Alabama.
with them signing Orlando Brown to play left tackle for them last year. The key to the Bengals is when Joe Burrow is in your starting lineup, you do better, a lot better. And right tackle, they had Jonah Williams last year. He leaves in free agency. Go ahead and get me a guy that can walk in and be my starting right tackle right off the get go. Plus, when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, there's an opportunity that they might be getting a high second round pick or potentially a first round pick because T. Higgins came out today and said, I want to be traded. And welcome to the time where guys on franchise tag get traded.
Also, Trey Hendricks also requested a trade. So
That's not going to happen.
probably not.
T. Higgins, it makes a little bit more sense because you're going to have to pay Jamar Chase, and you're
Yeah.
going to pay Jamar Chase over T. Higgins if you're the Bengals. So go ahead and get me a guy that can help keep him upright and really make this team push. And you saw what they could do with Jake Browning. They won a handful of games with Jake Browning at the helm. So
Yep.
go ahead and give me J.C. Latham to the Bengals. With the 19th overall pick, the L.A. Rams select.
Ouchie. Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington.
It
That's a big
pained me
ouchie.
so much to do this, but the pick makes too much sense. When you look at the Rams last year in season, they signed Carson Wentz because Matt Stafford couldn't stay healthy, right? This is a team that has a playoff caliber roster, and you need an insurance plan. And Michael Penix Jr. penned a letter to the league like you've seen other guys do in the past. I didn't read the whole thing, but I caught the last bit of it. And it's just the guy that you want to lead your team.
Mhm.
In that he said, I'll, you're concerned about my medicals. I'd be more concerned if I had these injuries and I didn't come back. Look at Frank Gore Jr. that had 2 ACL tears in college and had a 16-year NFL worthy career. Thomas Davis, 2 ACL tears in college, 3-time Pro Bowler, heart of that Panthers defense. He's like, I'll take any MRI or X-ray that you want me to take, but to evaluate me as a player, all you need is an EKG machine to measure his heart. And
Yeah.
the guy can spin a ball. Caleb Williams says that Michael Penix Jr. is his favorite quarterback in this draft besides himself. Everyone gushes about how he can spin a ball. He's probably one of the best pure throwers in this class. Yeah, there's question marks about his in-game athleticism. He does a pretty darn good job of manipulating the pocket. But if you're looking for a guy to take over the helm and throw to Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, you're not going to find one much better than Michael Penix Jr.
I can get behind that. It's just big ouchie to see.
Yeah, I was talking to some coworkers this week, and where do you think Michael Penix Jr. is going to go? If the Seahawks trade back and Michael Penix and they get towards the ass end of the round, I could see them doing that and then flipping Sam Howell legitimately for a day 2 pick for those guys that missed out on the top tier quarterbacks and really getting weird with it. But
Yeah.
I said where I want Michael Penix Jr. to go is not in the NFC West. So what did I do in my last mock draft? I put him in the NFC West. All right. At pick number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers select.
Marius Mims, tackle out of Georgia.
You got Russell Wilson. You got Justin Fields on this team. You upgrade at the quarterback position. And it's a spot that I've looked at wide receiver in the past, but you have George Pickens. I think this is another team that needs to make sure that those guys are protected. Justin Fields has been banged up in his career. Russell Wilson a little bit more as he's gotten older. You need a competent tackle, a guy that has the size, the profile that you want to see as that starting tackle in the league. And Amaris Mims gives you that. And I think that they're going to great. They had 2,000-yard rushers last year with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, both eclipsing 1,000 yards. So they are going to want to keep that run game alive. Go ahead and give me something that helps solidify that offensive line.
Yep.
With the 21st overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select
Jazan Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois.
Probably has the best pass rush upside out of the defensive tackles and reminds me a little bit of a guy that they just lost in free agency. You had Christian Wilkins, who had continued to progress, was a first round pick around this area for the Dolphins about 5 years ago, right? This
Yeah.
go ahead and get me a guy to replace that. You feel competent about what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball with Egbert, Mike McDaniels, right? This defense needs some help, and especially on the interior. And this is a guy that has that upside. You've seen the Kirby Josephs, the Devin Witherspoons go in from Illinois and go be splash players in the NFL in their rookie years. And I think that with the right situation, you can get that as well with Jerzon Johnny Newton.
Right.
Pick 23, the Philadelphia Eagles select
Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama.
the Eagles. Just, I mean, I was so tempted to give him another Georgia player here because that's all they seem to be doing in the first round in the last couple of years. But Terrion Arnold is a guy that I don't necessarily think that I think that if he's still hanging around, someone's going to try and jump up to get him. I could even see the Eagles wanting to jump up to the Seahawks pick to get him, right? Because this is a guy that can be a game changer for you in the defensive backfield. And that was the part of the big downfall. Linebacker play in your back seven is what really hindered the Eagles down the stretch, right? You've got Slay, who still played well enough. Bradbury took a big step back. Keely Ringo is a little bit too raw. Terry Arnold gives you that player that's a little bit more crisp in his play and can be a guy that I think inserted starter right away. And you can still get Keely Ringo up from big play Slay decides to hang up the cleats. Then you've got your young tandem of the future. With the 23rd overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals select.
Troy Fantanu, tackle out of Washington.
Like I said, they need players, and their interior offensive line has never been great, and it needs to get better. Now I'm going to the point for the Cardinals where I want best player available, and I think that Troy Fantanu could go as high as 12, even 13. This guy is super athletic. He is like the Quentin Nelson. When Quentin Nelson came out, everyone was gushing about him. He's a top 10 pick. Troy Fantanu gives you that athleticism, that burst, that power. And yes, he will be changing to a new position. He played a little bit of it in college, but this is a guy in a pinch. If Jonah Williams gets hurt, because I believe he signed with the Cardinals, I think you can bump him out tackle and you're going to be pleasantly surprised with what you get. So it's a versatile guy for them here. And I think that he fits best player available for me because that's how I'm going to get the rest of the way out for the Arizona Cardinals, as I've already picked for need and did a little bit of a reach in my opinion. Now I'm going best player available. Give me them players.
All right.
At pick number 24, the Dallas Cowboys select
Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas.
Brandon Cooks. Gave you some good things last year, but didn't give me things. He's not getting younger. Okay.
He's not
His
wide receiver too.
No. And you look at what you have in CD Lamb and go ahead and give me a big time playmaker out of Texas, right? We've talked about it before on potentially them snagging up Brooks, the tailback out of there. Could be a second round pick. They might just go heavy on Texas. This is a big time player. Donnie Mitchell was part of the Georgia Bulldogs that won a national title and transfers to Texas. Big time player, red zone threat. When you have him on one side, CD Lamb on the other, it's going to be a lot tougher for defenses to defend. And then you can even run Cooks out of the slot. I
Yeah,
mean, it makes this team a lot more dangerous.
agreed.
All right. With pick number 25, the Green Bay Packers select.
Graham Barton, tackle out of Duke.
With this right now, he gives you guard tackle versatility. If you feel good about what you've got at the tackle position, even with David Bakhtiari being retired now, they filled that position before. He gives you that versatility where he could play guard, could play tackle, and that's what I want for this team. They made that surprise playoff win, and you want that to continue going forward. I like enough of what they have on the defense, so I want to go ahead and help that offense a little bit more. I can look at defense a little bit later in this draft.
Right.
All right, at pick number 26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select
Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa.
Carlton Davis isn't on this team anymore, right? He's not. I want to go ahead and get a guy that I think will stick at corner. I think that he has the tools to do it. He's electric in the return game. This is a guy that can really help mold that secondary. And you had Antoine Winfield Jr. get that second contract, or he got franchise tag, whatever it was, right? Go ahead and give me this player to insert on this team because the Bucks are going to be in a dogfight. And when you look at the teams that ended near the top of the division, the Bucks and I think the Falcons, when you really look at it, are most on the upswing. They both go and get defensive backs to really go against a league that is gearing more and more towards the passing game. Yes, a running game is great when you have that player, but it's usually a little bit more of a complement now. We're in a wide receiver heavy league, so go ahead and get me a guy that can defend that for these Bucks because you're going to be in close games. Baker Mayfield can do his things at times, but you're going to be playing close games with Baker Mayfield. So,
Yep,
how can I limit points? How can I limit big plays? Well, how do I do that? Cooper DeJean.
I like it.
All right, with pick number 27, the third pick in this first round by the Arizona Cardinals, they select
Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson.
another great value pick, and it's a position of need for this team. It kind of is the best of both worlds, right? This
Mhm.
is a pick that we have put here before. He's got that NFL body type. I like him quite a bit, right? I want Nate Wiggins to go in and compete on this team. You pair him up with Buda Baker in that secondary. Now you've went and got an offensive playmaker. You've went and fortified your offensive line, and you get a guy that can start for you for 4 to 5 years on the outside. I mean, I, I love myself as the Cardinals GM right now. All right. At pick number 28, the Buffalo Bills select.
Xavier Legette, wide receiver out of South Carolina.
Heard they've had a little bit of a private workout and a liking to Mr. Leggett here. And I could see the Bills as a team where if wide receivers start to stumble a little bit, being a team that kind of trades up with the Colts, the Seahawks, the Jaguars, if those wide receivers are available to get more of a higher profile guy. But I think this is a guy that slots in pretty well on this team. He's got he's got a good skill set. He's got good speed. He's got good body control. He does a lot of things really good. He just doesn't have that thing that sets him apart from some of these other guys, those traits. He's
Mhm.
an above average at damn near everything, but he's not excellent at one thing. So I think that pairing him on this team, which is another team that is just void of wide receiver, big playability, Shalil Shakur is your number one
Mhm.
wide receiver right now. I don't like that. Go ahead and give me a guy that has the opportunity to take that number one role from day one and really get into that camp and really form a relationship with Josh Allen, quarterback.
Yep.
All right. We are at pick number 29. The Detroit Lions select
Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama.
This is a guy that we have mocked here before. I think he's just too toolsy to pass up. I've seen him go into the second round before in some of the mock drafts I look at, but it's a position of need for the Lions, and I think the tools are there. And like we said, Aaron Glenn, being the defensive coordinator, former defensive back in the league for years, and has shown that he's a player's coach. I think he might be able to talk some sense into old Kool-Aid and get him to drink his Kool-Aid. All right. We're down to our last three picks. At pick number 30, the Baltimore Ravens select.
Chop Robinson, edge out of Penn State.
I like the profile of Chop Robinson. There have been quite a few guys in recent years coming out of Penn State that have done things in the NFL. One of them is on the Ravens, Owe. You also look at Micah Parsons. You also look at Yetur Gross Matos, who just got his second deal. It kind of fizzled what he thought he was going to do. But with Chop, I like his traits. And go ahead and put him on a defensive heavy team that I think could really use an extra guy because you lost a little bit of coverage and stuff with your linebacker. So what's going to help out your linebackers? Getting after the quarterback and playing sound outside technique. And I think you can get that from Chop Robinson. All right, with pick number 31, the San Francisco 49ers select
Roger Rosengarten, tackle. Gotta watch it. I guess the
NFC. The NFC
West
West
just loves
loves
Washington
UW
players.
because one Washington player goes to each of these. I'm gonna credit Mel Kiper Jr. on this. He's been calling this for a while. He thinks that Rosengarten can slot into the first round. I think that he will probably start his career at guard, but he can also pressure Colton McKivitz for that starting right tackle job. And McKivitz could potentially swing over to the left side if you get Trent Williams banged up, and that can lend Roger Rosengarten to bump out there. Mel Kiper's super high on this guy. He says he's one of the most underrated guys, and he's mocked him to him a week or two ago. And then when him and McShay went back and forth on picks, McShay had the 49ers pick, so he didn't go there. But guess who went like in the very top of the second round for Mel Kiper Jr.? Roger Rosengarten. And if Mel Kiper really likes the guy, that usually bodes pretty well for his
Yeah.
draft status and knowing where he's going to go. So go ahead and add him to this team and stick a dagger in my heart because it hurts for all these UW guys not going to the Seahawks. All right. With the last pick in the first round, the Cincinnati Chiefs select, not Cincinnati, Jesus, Kansas City Chiefs. Whew.
Whoa! They select Ennis Rakestraw Jr., quarterback out of Missouri.
Tackle is a big position of need for me, but when you look at where we're sitting right now, there have been that little bit of run on corners, right? So I'm in a spot right now where I'm not super confident as we get down here that there's going to be that corner that I like. There still might be a tackle available where I can make a little move in that second round to go get a guy that I think can compete on this team. Rackshaw Jr. is a guy that has worked his way up draft charts. He's a guy that fills a position of need to go across from all pro. Let's just keep it in UW. Trenton McDuffie that's starting on this team at the opposite corner with the losing of L'Jarius Sneed. I think that this position was huge for them last year and their trip to that second in a row Lombardi trophy.
Yeah.
You do have Trent McDuffie, can take a little bit of pressure off that, but go ahead and get me a guy that I think has worked himself into first round contention.
I like it.
And that concludes our mock drafting for the year. We hope that you all have loved every installment, and we hope that we get more picks right than we get wrong. But I will tell you, as I do this every year, where I try to pick who's going to be picked in the first round in real time. And I think the most that I've ever got correct is about 15 or 16. It's tough. It's extremely tough when you look at what you hear, what you think, what you've seen versus what these NFL talent evaluators see, that maybe they see that special trait that only showed up on film once or twice, but they think they can unlock it. So it's tough to see what those guys are doing. But that's what makes the NFL draft for me must see TV.
Mm-hmm.
The drama that comes with it, the ability for one guy going to one place can change the course of that franchise for a decade, for 2 decades even. It's one of my favorite times of the year, and it's an opportunity for these guys. There's going to be some guys that get drafted higher than expected. There's going to be guys that slide. There's going to be guys that don't get drafted at all. So you get the highs and the lows. You have a lot of moving parts and moving pieces, but for the NFL, this is the kickoff to the new season. Everyone can sit there and get excited about their picks, or they can loathe it. It's one or the other. You're not, when you're a fan of these teams, you're not like, oh, that draft was just okay. It's either I love this draft or I hated this draft. We hope that everyone out there loves their draft, except if they're in the NFC West.
Yeah.
And we would also love you to give us a follow over on social media. You can find me, your boy, Coach Red, on X at The Real Coach Red, on Instagram at The Real _ Coach Red, TikTok at The Real Coach Red. Also, find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
You can find me over on Twitter at Kane2406, on YouTube at Kane06, TikTok Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follows. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.